Hello, welcome to episode 4 of Get Good or Get Gooder or Get Gooder or episode 4, the Phantom Good, one of the 3 or 4 nicknames we just gave this thing. And it is a bunch of SCA Masters of Defense talking about how to get good at fencing or cut and thrust, or perhaps even spears. Who knows what we'll talk about this evening. So the way that this works is that I ask a bunch of questions, and I would like everyone who wants to ask a question to please throw it into chat. Some of them we will do our utmost best to get to. So, the first thing I like to do is, I'm not sure who this is connecting with us, but we'll find out here in a second. I don't know. Anyways.
Backslash.
Yes, this is a backslash person. All right, backslash person, I am going to, oh, that's Emily. Hey, Emily. No, Emily's coming in. Emily, I am putting you on, I'm going to turn off your video. So what we're doing is, if you are not participating, I'm turning off your video. Sorry, this will probably happen a number of times during the discussion. So the first thing I like to do is to go basically around the Zoom and ask the question of why should people listen to you? And the reason why I ask this is I would like you to brag a tiny bit about why people should listen to you. And I'll give you an example. I'll start off with me. Hi. In the SCA, I'm known as Illidor de Bettigrain. I am the Premier Master of Defense of the West, and I currently live in Athelmark. I have been my Kingdom's champion 5 times. I've won my Kingdom Championship 5 times. I have fought a number of champion bouts at both Gulf Wars and at Penzik, and I cannot tell you my win-loss ratio, but it was more often than not that I did end up winning. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So now we're going to go to Master Remy. Master Remy, tell us why people should listen to you.
I can't follow that up. Should have had you go last. I am Master Remy. I've been King's Champ, so it's our Crown's champion of the East once. Won a bunch of other tournaments. I was our East Kingdom former general for a couple of years. Victorious as general both years, which is great. I've the 15th Master of Defense for the East. Been fencing for 10 years, so not super long compared to some folks' timeline in the SCA. But I've been doing a lot of teaching and a lot more studying and practicing on different historical combat martial arts and stuff.
Harry, are you participating or are you just attending?
Whatever you want.
It's up to you. What? It's up to you.
I'll participate.
All right, great. Terry, so what we are doing right now is we're going around the Zoom and explaining who we are and why people should listen to us. So Donovan, you're up next.
I am? Okay. Hi, I'm Donovan Chinook, and I'm one of the Premier Masters of Defense in the East. I've been King's Champion of Defense 5 times now. Other than that, I mean, you can listen to me if you want or not. That's fine. I'm not that picky about it.
All right.
We're too self-deprecating of a group to like be very
tiny bit.
Yeah, we've all been like learning how not to be that guy. So like.
Hey, wait a minute.
Abigail, are you going to participate?
Right, but you were.
Are you going to participate? Abigail. Or yes, you. Are you participating?
I mean, I can if you want me to.
It's up to you. We currently have, you will be our 6th person. Otherwise, we can go to 5. It's up to you.
Sure.
All right, cool. You're on. So what we're doing right now is talking a little bit about who we are and why people should listen to us to get good. And I'm going to go to Llewellyn for another example of how to do this.
Hi, I'm Llewellyn Walsh of the East, like several of the other mods who are on here. I'm the youngest out of the group who's on here. I've only been a mod just over a year. I've been in the society for 9 years. I've been fencing for about 8.5, and I've been selected for the champs team for 6 of those years, and one of them was because I didn't go, is why I wasn't selected for that team. I was on cut and thrust, singles and melee for all different types of champion things. I've been Queen's champ. I've been Baronial champ multiple times, House champ a bunch of times, and I like stabbing people. It's just always fun.
All right, Terry and Abigail, can you also change your name so I pronounce them correctly on your? And also, we're also recording this, by the way. So,
Not really allowing me to change my name.
all right, Dworkin, I'm muting you. There we are. Let's see. Mirabai has changed your name. Mirabai, you go next. Why should people listen to you on how to get good?
I'm Mirabai from the Mid, and I'm a former general, and I've been Queen's champ. I help to run the champions team stuff. I run the list for the champions team. I've been in the SCA for 20 years at this point. Been fencing for about 15 with time out to live in other countries. Yeah, that's it.
Terry, what about you?
Okay, my name is Terrence of Tynesdale. I'm from the Middle Kingdom. I've been in the SCA since 1978. I fought heavy for 20 years. I've fenced for 20 years. I'm also that guy from That Guy's Products. So a lot of you are probably wearing my Roger. And a few of you still wearing my masks. I'm just a broken down old fencer who happened to train most of the mods in the Middle Kingdom.
Excellent. All right. So the first question that I like to ask, so one of the first questions we have actually today is, how do you gain confidence on the field? Wellen is walking.
Confident.
Anyone? Bueller, how do you gain confidence on the field?
I'd say probably by having confidence in yourself, obviously. Practice, practice, practice. And stab people.
Yeah,
I think having a system really helps. Like if you're just out there trying to do a bag of tricks, it's very hard to know what to do in every situation that you're gonna run into. It's already hard enough to know how to fight the various types of fighters that you're gonna run into in the SCA. So I think having a system in which you know what you can go from like one guard or one position and stuff, kind of have like a little flow chart or a bunch of techniques and mechanics and concepts to kind of really work off of. It's a big help because then you don't have to think as much. You can kind of let the muscle memory kind of kick in a little more. You can kind of think more at a higher level of fencing, which is much better than where should I put my sword right now. If you're thinking at that level, it's much harder, I think, to have the confidence to do really well and get
fake it. No, like seriously, like if you're just looking for like either confidence, like confidence in your abilities and confidence in yourself as a fencer, or if you're talking about that sort of like performative confidence, like you know, like Remy said, having a system that you can rely on and you know, just going out and doing it, but like to a degree, you just need to like do it and put on a good face, and eventually it just gets easier, and then a few good things start to happen on the field, and it all kind of like just starts to snowball, and you realize you're not faking it anymore. But like for the most part, you know, even like the first time I'm going out there doing a new thing or going out to the new woods or doing something weird and different, yeah, I'm lying to myself and to everyone around me about how confident I am, and then sooner or later it settles in and you don't notice it anymore. Also making sure you have people around you who can be honest with you, and also like, by which I mean, most people say when you want people to be honest with you, it's like, hey, don't you know, don't let me get too big for myself, but also like if you're just sitting around shit talking yourself afterwards, they should tell you to stop.
That's excellent.
Yeah, having somebody to slap you upside the head occasionally when you need it is a good thing.
Well, and building on what both Terry and Donovan said, I think time on the field, but not just time with a sword in your hand practicing, but getting to know people. I know for myself, some events that I went to year after year, the first couple of years I went, I hardly knew anyone, and that really affected confidence on the field because it's, oh my God, all these strangers are watching me do this, and how am I going to do? And then the more that I got to know people and have some experience fighting them, the more confident I was going out because I stopped focusing as much on everyone's watching and started focusing more on just my fight and having fun with the person that I was working with. And
Right. Anyone else want to answer this one?
I missed the question because I lost internet, so that's why you caught me walking. I was like, all right, I'll walk closer to the router.
What do you think the question was? And then answer that.
Yes, that's a good one. What did you think the question was?
No, this is a mod.
Something about how to be confident.
Yeah.
Yes, basically how to be confident. How do you gain confidence on the field?
I just had to go out a whole bunch of times and continuously fight and work with different people and be willing to ask, hey, do you have any advice for me? And just have to put myself out there so that I would be able to get more information so that I could get better. And I just got more confident that way.
I have a whole class basically on this, but it basically boils down to just like summing up everything everyone has said. I do like two things that we weren't really talking about. And one is having a mantra. So I practice when I go out, I have a mantra to like help me get into the right mindset, right? And like and that helps me like go, okay, it's fencing time now. I have a phrase in my head. And then the second one is I make very clear to myself, and I also tell this to my students, you should be practicing every aspect of your game, including tournaments, right? If you want to get good at tournaments, you should be entering a lot of tournaments because a tournament is practice for the next tournament you're going to be in. So just keep going to tournaments and eventually you will get better at doing that. So the next one we had is, I like this one. How do you practice timing?
Define timing.
I don't know, Masters of Defense. How would you define timing?
No, I would like to hear how the person who wants the question answered defines it because I want to know what they consider timing so we can better answer the intended question.
That's all they gave me. Maybe they'll get, okay, I'll go to another one. What is the most important part of a lunge? And maybe they'll get back to me in a minute. What's the most important part of a lunge?
Order.
Say that again.
Doing it in the right order.
What is the right order?
Hand, then your hand is faster than the body is faster than the foot. Hand, then body, then foot.
Okay.
Silver's time.
I mean, he was a jerk, but he wasn't wrong.
That's the one thing he got right. The only thing he really got right.
I would say level of commitment. You need to commit enough that the person understands that this definitely is a threat, but not overcommit such that if they do something you weren't expecting, you can recover.
I'd also add on there, making sure that line is actually open. Because if you send a lunge, no matter what order, and the line's not actually open, it's not going anywhere.
I'm laughing because of something that Darius says all the time, which is, did you know where my sword was? Because if you don't know where my sword is, you're probably dead.
Right. There was a comment in here, what about Gigante versus Capifero's recovery? I'm assuming that they mean regarding a lunge. I would say having a good recovery is also a very important part of having a lunge, being able to get out, right? Get in, get out.
Yeah, like when I'm teaching lunges to people, I tell people not to lunge any further than they can recover from easily. Like if you do your like Hail Mary lunge and you don't land that shot, you're screwed unless you happen to be wielding a very long sword with a very long arm and you can maybe take that risk, but still reckless. And being a short fencer, and I teach a lot of other short fencers, you just can't get away with reckless attacks like that and stuff. So being able to recover from your lunge is super important.
And being able to recover defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is Gigante's whole thing, is you recover defensively, and then you wait to see if your opponent falls down or not, and if he doesn't, then you step in and stab him again.
I'll often tell newer fencers, especially for the safety of your knees and your groin, 2 short steps is better than 1 long lunge. Easier to recover, easier to prevent injury.
I really like Gigante's recovery because you're putting as much steel between you and your opponent, and that makes me very happy, right? I like having, like, it is one, both defensive and offensive at the same time. So that makes me very happy. So the next one I'm going to throw in is, it's my usual question, which is, what is the one thing that now in this time of pandemic, people can be doing alone at home to help improve their game? What is the number one thing in your mind?
Lunge
Watch
drill.
Remy's videos. Haha, I beat him to it.
Man, the $20 he gave you for that was super well spent.
They threw it in pennies, though.
For me, it's lunge drills.
Lunge.
I have no knees to speak of anyway, so I have to keep working my lunge just to keep the mobility. So part of as a heart attack survivor, part of my morning cardio is doing 20 to 40 lunges, and then again in the evening.
That's a lot of lunges.
Well, I know people who do 100 at a shot, so logos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe it.
All right. Anyone else want to answer that question?
I would say any activity that focuses on mobility, speed, balance. Yoga will improve you as a fencer. Biometrics will improve you as a fencer.
I'm all about the yoga, obviously, as people know who are on my Facebook page.
Yeah,
Anyone-
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
I was gonna say, like, anything that's conditioning
Yeah.
that doesn't require like input from a partner. Like, it's you can't really practice parries. It's hard, like, not really. But like anything that keeps your body moving and anything that lets you work body mechanics in a vacuum, super
So
great.
can't you can at least practice the form of a parry.
For sure. But like you're gonna miss the timing of it. You're gonna miss anything that requires some sort of information from a partner.
Yeah, like I think really working on mechanics is really good. Like all kinds of different mechanics, like you work on finding your opponent's blade. Also, you don't have a blade to find unless you have a partner or a fencing pal or something. But you can still work on making sure you're getting the right advantages, making sure you're moving in good order, checking to make sure your body's aligned correctly and stuff. Like now is a good time to really work on those nitty-gritty details, and none of us really want to like practice or put a lot of time in, but like we got a lot more time if we're not been going out on vacations or going to have to travel to the office and stuff. So there's a little bit more time in the day, at least theoretically anyway, so we can kind of spend working on these those nitty-gritty details that are going to really pay off further on down the line when we can all hang out again.
So another thing that has come up previously has been watching videos online to help improve, like being able to improve, like watching and being able to critique other people, or be able to at least know, okay, this is what I would do against this person. So we have a question along those lines of, how do you learn to assess other people's fights while you are on the sideline and or assessing videos of yourself?
Watch with a critical eye. Basically deconstruct what they're doing and look for the errors, look for the mistakes, look for the small nuances that you're going to have to come up against.
Yeah, the good thing about watching videos, I think it was Brigitte who brought this up the last time, and I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really good idea. But the good thing about watching videos is if you thought you saw something, you can rewind it and go back and back and back. Compared to real time, you're like, I think I saw this opening, did you see that to somebody next to you? Instead, you could just like, no, I want to check that, and just keep going back.
Any other commentary?
I would say if you're watching from the sidelines, we've all been stuck in those tourneys where you end up in a long line in between fights. If you can watch someone across multiple fights, you can figure out what their pattern is. Because a lot of people, you know, they have their first 3 intents figured out before they even set foot on the field. And if you can figure out what those are going to be, you can beat them.
The one thing that I like doing is a game that a friend of mine taught me, which was stay on the sidelines, or if you're watching a video that you haven't seen before, play this game called Don't Go Yet, which is you wait to see right before they go, you say quietly to yourself, or if you're a jerk, say it out loud, don't go yet, and just see if you guess that, but they're about ready to go. And that way you can try and train your eye to see whether or not you think they're going to go, like if their major muscles are about ready to spring, if you can figure that one out. So that's what I like doing on the sideline myself. It keeps me entertained while I'm waiting to go and fight people. Any other commentary on this one? All right, this one is one of my favorite questions to ask. Why are tip cuts the best, and why is the middle wrong?
Say that again?
Why are tip cuts the best, and why is the middle kingdom wrong?
I can't even remember the last time I did a tip cut.
What?
I feel
Our
like
KRM is cracking his knuckles over here.
yeah. I feel like
You know, guy's chewing on his lips too.
If you can hit somebody with a tip cut, you could have thrusted them. Tip cuts are garbage.
yeah, like we have tip cuts.
Not
at
that
the
they
East
won't
Side.
be allowed in the next set of rules, but
Hey.
I don't know. I've seen what happens when you tip cut like a piece of meat with a sharp sword, and it's really not pretty. So
Was the piece of meat wearing a couple layers of linen?
the piece of meat was wearing at least 1 layer of saran wrap to duplicate skin, and then it was wearing linen equivalent to a shirt without a doublet of the period.
Got to throw the wool over the top.
Yep.
Basically what Darius said, in the mid, the attitude has always been for right or for wrong. If you can tip cut somebody, you could have thrust them. And that tip cuts are very often slop that's called good.
I'm just saying, right? So if you throw a shot, right? If you throw a thrust and you miss, right? Which happens. And then you're like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to recover by taking the sharp part of my sword and dragging it across their face, right?
I'm not going to be part of your agenda here, Illidor. How dare you use us like this?
But
The middle played with tip cuts briefly 12, 15 years ago, and we just decided no.
Oh, that's fair.
We decided to go for a more aesthetic fencing.
all right, stealing this back again. So I think that part of it was in prior times, especially with the thicker armor we generally wore, was easier to not feel tip cuts. I think with your transitioning to thinner materials, to linen, to chain, we're not wearing 4 layers of trigger all the time anymore. Tip cuts can be viable. They're easier to feel, but a lot of people still feel them as missed shots, slough, or just catching on their clothing. Where we've been trying, at least in some parts of it, to ingrain in people that whether it's officially in the rules or not, would you want somebody to do that to you with a razor blade? If not, then maybe you should consider taking whatever shot that was, whether it's, oh, well, that wasn't really a tip cut because a tip cut has to do this by the rules. It's like, stop. If I do that to you with a razor blade, are you going to like me? No.
Yeah.
Great. Let's.
For those of you in the audience, this is Master Darius. He's the current KRM of the mid. He's been Queen's champ and done a whole bunch of other stuff, run the champs team. So it's not just some guy mouthing off.
we have a twofer tonight is really what's going on. To the person who asked me to finish my sentence, my sentence was, I'm really just causing trouble at the moment. I fully believe that tip cuts are a viable cut because I've seriously injured myself with a piece of paper in the past, and I've injured myself with pencils. And I do honestly believe dragging a knife across my face would hurt me, and therefore I should not do it. So I think that they're valid. I like them very much because when I miss a shot, which does happen, they're great recovery, right? It is a great, like, I'm just gonna try and get you to keep, and it's a good way for them to keep them from coming at me, right? Like put metal between me and my opponent. So let's see. That's our next question. Otherwise, we'll start arguing about this for even longer. So the other one was, do you think that the order of defense, all right, we've gone into like less of like how to get good and more lots of like general mod questions, but whatever, it'll be good. What do you think the order of defense has improved? Do you think the order of defense has improved fencing in the SCA? In what ways? And has it detracted from fencing in the in what ways has it detracted from fencing in the SCA?
So,
Well, I think that as far as the improving things, if you approach being a mod with the right attitude, it can be an important thing. I just prior to the lockdown, I had one of my provosts be elevated, Gerard. And the day they put him on vigil, he came down on the dais and he said, "Thank you." And I told him, "Don't thank me. You just got a new job." Because I think you can't look at being a master as being an end, start of a whole new career, because now you have to pass it on to the next group. And I think anyone who looks at it as an end, as being the end, you know, the final cookie, is approaching it from the wrong aspect.
I think, I mean, I know there were a few people who, shortly after the Order of Defense became a thing, you know, we're saying openly like, well, now I need to buckle down and start like really practicing again. And I mean, for better or worse, a lot of humans are like reward-driven creatures, and you know, it certainly did, for better or for worse, you know, inspire some people to like stop sitting on the plateau that they were on and start like aggressively working again. And I don't think that's bad. In terms of improving fencing in the SCA overall, it's nice to feel like your activity is legitimate and worthy of a peerage. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
we're not ancillary anymore. That's neat. How's it detracted from the SCA? You know, detracted from fencing, though. I mean, peerages mean politics.
Yeah, peerages mean politics. Peerages mean people trying to do stuff just to get the peerage.
And I feel like there was a certain portion of our community that kind of liked the illegitimacy of fencing, for lack of a better term. They liked being the redheaded stepchildren and going against the flow, and well, now we're just part of, I don't know.
Establishment.
Yes.
And along with the politics part, I think meeting. The fact that we have more meetings now and that often happen at events, which take me off the field, and as well as my brothers and sisters, that makes it difficult. That's I think one of the bigger detractors. More meetings I have to attend. Anyone else on this one?
Well, just one thing I like to throw in too is when I was made a mod, I was 63. Yeah, 5 years ago. And I was in the process of slowly fading out of the SCA at the time. You know, it's like my attitude was, I'm old. It's time to, you know, look to other things. And when they elevated me, that basically dragged me back into it. So.
Right, who's drumming their fingers? That you carry.
When when the mod was created, I was still below grant level, as far as, yeah, you too. And I had already made it my goal that I wanted to get to the grant level in the East. I didn't want that to be the end of my journey, but it was where I wanted to go. And once the mod was created, I felt like there was a peerage that was now waiting for me. There was a final part of this track that matched everywhere else that I had seen in the society already, and that I could be welcome as part of that. I've never saw it as the end of my journey. Every level that I've gone up in my fighting, I started learning from different masters and learning different things. As cut and thrust has become available, now spears are available. I'm gonna pick up one of those and start playing with that. It's freed me up to no longer trying to attain this goal. I can now play and teach what I had to do to get to where I'm at to my students.
Actually, let's talk about that a little bit. The other question I often ask is like, how did you get, for the people in the audience, what was your path? How did you get to where you are? So I'll take this one real quick first. What I did when when I first started, I ended up going to at least 2 practices a week, sometimes 3, and then ended up going to 3, sometimes 3 events, and I went to at least a couple of wars a year. So I was doing a ton of traveling and a ton of fighting. Along with that, I was reading everything I could get my hands on, and this was 20 years ago, so there was not as much as there was, and there was definitely no Facebook groups on this. There was no Remy videos that I could go watch, right? So there was so my path really was getting as much fencing in as a short amount of time as possible. So what was your route? How did you get good?
I started, I've always been interested in various martial arts. I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. So by the time I joined the SCA, I understood some of the mechanics in fighting, and I could carry those over, but I didn't know how to use a sword. So I had to retrain my body to do that, but my eye could see how combat was working. I could see somebody started to move a certain way. I knew that their body was going to do this next step, but then I had to learn, how do I defend against that step? But it had been a little while since I had done some martial arts, so I went in whole hog. I was hitting 2 practices a week for a long time. One of them was because the mod wasn't created at the time, one of them was very grant level heavy. So I was switching back and forth. That, I believe, helped my journey go quicker, because I was fighting so many different people and getting so many different pieces of advice. And just like you, Ilador, I was hitting like a dozen plus events a year, probably closer to 15, and just fighting as much as I possibly could.
Hereby.
Anybody who wanted to have advice for me, I listened to them.
Hereby.
Mine was very stop and start at the beginning. I started fencing in 2004, but then in 2007 I moved out of country for a couple of years. And between those times I wasn't really that serious about it. I was going to my local practice and some events and kind of having fun, but didn't really have any interest in getting further. And then when I moved back to the States, I was very fortunate because I moved back to Columbus, and the local practice happened to have Thomas Effingham and Colin and Darius and Marco and like a bunch of people who were not only very skilled, but were good at teaching. So I got to work with them every week. And then for various reasons, ended up going to like between 36 and 40 events a year for 4 or 5 years. So just a lot of fencing, and a lot of fencing in different kingdoms. Going to Gulf Wars for the first time was really an eye-opener, because I fenced with people at Penzik, but that was about the extent of my out-of-kingdom experience. And it just really opened me up to all the different techniques that people use, and things that are sort of taken as canon in your own kingdom are not true in other kingdoms. So just being fortunate to have a really great local practice and then having the opportunity to travel a lot and fence a lot of people.
Terry?
For me, I started doing just general fencing. And then when they first started up the original cut and thrust, at that time it was called the side sword experiment back in 00 and 01. That's what got me started in historical. And so I took the historical route, you know, hanging out on Sword Forum International, going to ISMAC, going to WMAW, and learning all I could on the historical aspect of it. You know, searching around for translations and everything back in the old days. And this is just basically historic has been my path the whole time. You know, I was one of the first people to start doing Gigante way back when, and just getting tutored whenever I could by Gary Chelik.
Yep.
Kaid. Traded a mask for his original translation of Gigante's books, and spent my own time taking the PDFs of the plates that were online and trying to match them up with the text of the books. And so that was pretty much mine. Was almost entirely historical aspect.
Donovan?
So I mean, when I started fencing, I did, I think what a lot of people did, which was say, swords are neat, I want to play with swords. And right, you get your epee, and because that's what we had then. I was relatively lucky in that one of my very early instructors worshipped at the altar of doing drills, and like that was instilled in me super early, and that kind of structured everything from there. You know, when we were starting to like do the first like major push into moving away from epees, was around when someone gave me one of the old facsimiles of the Patri translation of Fabris. And yeah, then I was like, well, if we're using these historical weapons, why don't we look at how they were actually used? Because why reinvent the wheel? And you know, then similar to Terrence, it was just like that from there. Like, how do I figure out how to use the historical concepts, and then how do I try to learn them in a structured, like thoughtful and directed way, as opposed to just, well, I'm going to show up at practice and screw around for 2 hours and go home. And I was also very lucky in that I could hit 2 practices a week. An armored guy I know, you know, feels that like 1 practice a week is like maybe maintenance, and 2 practices a week is improvement, and 2 practices an event, and an event is now you're starting to see some actual gains.
Yeah.
And like, so the combination of just a directed practice, having people you could drill with, and just getting a lot of time on the field.
Remy, what about you?
Yeah, so I came into the SCA after doing a couple of years of foil fencing, Olympic foil fencing. Try making that work with a rapier, realize that just doesn't really work. Not the same length, not the same weight, just not super good. So then I just tried being fast, because I was like 23, 24 when I joined or whatever. I was like 130 pounds, so like I didn't have much target. I'm 5'6", I'm a very small target, very fast. Could get only so far with being a tiny, fast little fencer. And kind of decided that I needed to learn how these weapons actually worked. And it was around that time that Academy Duello launched Duello.tv, which is like their online subscription teaching service. So I would watch those videos, learn how to do different techniques and the drills, and then I would like email my practice ahead of time, like, hey, I want to run these drills tomorrow. And then I had like a little drill group that's kind of started, and that kind of came and went in different waves and stuff. But for a long time, I was only going to 1 practice a week because I didn't have a car. So get into anything beyond my local practice was super difficult. But I was going to a bunch of events because a lot of our locals were super good about driving my carless spot all over the kingdom and stuff to get to events and stuff. And then eventually, after I got my ogre, which is our grant level award, I ended up hooking up with Donovan to become his provost. But even before that, he and I were drill partners for like a couple of years, going back and forth. So having a dedicated person in my practice that was willing to just grind through some monotonous drills every week was super useful. Like I really found my skill jumping up much faster, just being able to work on the basics with somebody for like 15, 20 minutes each practice and stuff.
So we've gotten a couple of questions regarding, I'm gonna make, so that was an easy one, so let's go into one of the harder ones. So one of the questions is along the lines of, actually I'm just gonna bunch them together. What is the order doing to improve its gender balance? For those of you with kids, who watches them while you fence? Does your partner babysit?
So I think I'm the only kid haver here. So no, my partner doesn't babysit. My partner helps watch her child. That said, we are relatively lucky in that we have a number of friends and people who are close to us who are willing to help out with the emotional support toddler, and watch him if it so happens that both of us want to fence at once. Certainly, there will be times when it's my turn to parent the kid primarily, and other people go fence. We will also cheerfully pay babysitters during events and use Camp Grandma. But no, the partner does not babysit. The partner parents, just like I will also happily parent my own child, as some people have seen, who is freaking adorable. And yeah, but it's super hard. And to knock off on the other question, yeah, there's absolutely an expectation that mom's going to watch the kid, because of course mom's going to watch the kid. And that is a hard thing to it can be a hard thing to avoid falling into, even if you don't mean to, and even if you try really hard not to. It's super hard, and it sucks, especially when you realize you're doing it. I have no good answer.
So I don't think you've gotten into the other question, which was, what is the order doing to improve gender balance?
So,
Not enough.
Well, yeah, I'll guarantee you that one for sure. What can we do then?
at least in the mid, when the mod was created and the first couple of years thereafter, there was sort of this weird vacuum created where you had like the mods and a few bronze rings that were, which is our grant level, which were close to mods. And then the rest of the bronze rings, and then this huge gap, and then some new really excited people. And so regardless of gender, we've been working over the last couple of years to help all of those people up their game, because there was just this weird sort of vacuum created. We had a crown that pretty much emptied the lists for the bronze ring and for the mod. And it was like, okay, so we have no one who's really ready for either of these. So it's been a while in coming. I know in my local area, we have several female fencers who are doing really well. And we've been working not only to encourage them and work with them within our group, but to kind of hook them up with other people who could help them in ways that maybe we can't. Telling them, you know, which events we think might be really beneficial for them to go to. Obviously, I'm talking before the whole pandemic hit. Since then, I've been talking a lot with them through Facebook Messenger, but obviously no practices, and pointing them towards things like this tonight, or like Remy's videos, things that can be helpful while we can't physically be working together.
Anyone else?
I see this as, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Remy.
Okay, I see this as like, kind of like two fronts, like a two-front battle trying to prove this. Like one is the back end, which is really kind of like the order meetings and when people come up in discussion and stuff. And one, checking my own biases. Like if a woman's name comes up and my instinct is to say no, I need to step back and be like, are my reasons legit, or am I falling into society norms that maybe that I've been trying to kick, but you know, old habits die hard, you need to constantly work in. Also call out other people in the order if they're also doing that, especially if they're falling into very stereotypical arguments, especially when they say like, oh, this woman candidate doesn't fence well enough. They're like, are you sure? Because they just whooped your butt the other day. So like, and maybe they're actually right, and we look at the big grand scheme of things. But like, sometimes we need to make sure we're checking our own biases and putting other people in check. That's the back end that a lot of people don't see. That can get kind of ugly pretty fast because everyone has their own opinion and no one wants to think they're being misogynistic or sexist, even if they are by accident, or at least like not being actively them. The other thing I see is what we can do at practices to help women fencers get the attention and training they need. Part of it is, I think the SCA is horrible at teaching because we're really bad at having structured practices. A lot of the stereotypical SCA practice is we all just show up and we goof around and just stab each other and do a lot of things. And I think that benefits stereotypically cis male fighters who, because a lot of us grew up playing sports, roughhousing, play fighting, and all that stuff. So being thrown into this chaotic environment in which we can kind of like a free for all. We've kind of over decades of growing up kind of have at least some sort of basis to kind of draw from, where a lot of women stereotypically have been encouraged not to play sports or be like roughhouse or any kind of play fighting and stuff. So they might not have that same base level that a lot of guys jump in. So I think that structured learning, so we can kind of, like, I think this goes back to how do you get confidence? I think having that system really helps. So teaching people how to use a sword, how to hold a sword correctly, how to move correctly, how to keep yourself safe and all this stuff, having those structured practices in which everyone is getting the attention they need is super helpful. It's something I've been trying to do. I was trying to create a structured practice right when the pandemic hit. I tried turning that into online classes, which is its own difficulties in terms of it's hard to give people the one-on-one attention they need via Zoom when like not everyone's spreading super well and stuff. But at least it's an opportunity where people can all come in and learn versus, well, I'm just going to pick this hotshot dude who's like 26-year-old and fast and really tall because I know he's going to make ogre in like 2-3 years. So I'll train with him because it's going to be an easy notch on my belt as a teacher. So, which isn't good. I want to see everyone improve and kick my butt at the next tournament. So I really see it as like those two fronts.
Going off of what Remy said, I actually have a student who never did sports growing up. She never did anything that was resembling combat. And I took her on as my cadet last year. She had been working with me for a while. And we both know that this is going to be a very long road because she has to learn pretty much everything from the beginning. But from how we were working together, I felt as though I was the best person around who she could normally work with and who she was very comfortable working with to teach her. And I've been able to break things down if I say, well, this is what this thing says. Well, I don't get it. And this happens with a lot of different students. They might not get it a certain way. I will continue to break that one thing down until you understand it, and then keep work, and then we'll go off of there. But you have to be willing to not just go, well, this is how I teach it. You have to be able to willing to break down your teaching method for whoever you are teaching so that they know, so that they can actually learn from you.
Anyone else?
Well,
Gary, do you have any comment?
Yeah, in the Chicago area, we have one big practice. It's the Ayrton practice, and roughly, depending on turnout, anywhere from a third to a half of our turnout will be women. I generally spend 3/4 of my practice training them because we've got basically pretty much covered the full spectrum on fighters as far as skill level goes. So I'll spend most of my day doing that, and at the very end of the day, I'll take my provost Arik and I'll say, okay, beat me up, just for my part of the practice. But I spend most of my practices training, and because of the balance we have, most of it is training women. I trained women when I fought heavy too, so there are certain elbow differences and hip differences that I've learned to adjust to and pass that on to them for things they need to work with too.
For my part, I think most of the audience here knows my feelings on this. If not, I can point you out to Facebook pages. Generally, I feel like there is systemic sexism in not only the SCA and rapier fighting, but like in the whole known world, and so and in the real world as well. And so my main, I feel like mine is to try and point out as much how it's systemic. Like it's just everywhere. It's at every level, much like Remy discussed. Like we have to combat it at more than one front. I love the idea of checking our own mindset and biases for this. It is a long road, and I'm willing to follow down that path the rest of my life. All right, so that was a little statement-y on my part. So hopefully a little easier one. We're going to combine this one, which was how often should you go to a practice in the times where we could go to practice, right? So there are two questions, two parts. Part one, how often should you go to a practice versus drill versus research? And then the next question I'm going to combine with this are drills are important to helping people improve their skill. If one is not very experienced with drills, how does that person encourage people around them to drill with them?
One of the things we've done at our practices, we'll do the first 15, 20 minutes where we'll do what we refer to as one and done. So you just grab a partner, you have one bout to one touch, and then you grab a new partner. This is to get you out of the habit of being in sparring mode and working in more of a tournament mode, where you go for the one touch. After about 20 minutes of this, then we break down to drills. And usually Logos or myself or Master Kai or Master Tedesco will have a drill set up for that day, and we'll spend another 45 minutes to an hour just doing the drills. And then we break down into free play again after that.
Anyone else?
So I can answer the second half of the question, because that's
Okay.
basically how I started with getting into Italian Rapier. Is like no one was doing drills at our practice. It was just you show up, you play, you go home kind of thing. And I'm like, I want to do these drills. I need drill partners. I literally would just like shoot out an email the night before and be like, hey, this is what I wanted to do. This is the time I'm going to do it. Come drill with me. And people amazingly showed up. Maybe that's because I have a high charisma score. I mean, that kind of plays maybe into it a little bit too, just like that interpersonal skills that maybe the people wanted to join in because of that. But I think just being also being super honest about what your skill level is. Like if I'm teaching something that's pretty new, even to myself, I like to be upfront and be like, I've just been starting to play this recently, or I just watched this drill last night. Let's play around with it and kind of experiment and see where it goes and stuff. And that way, one, it's keeping yourself honest, to not kind of prop yourself up onto the hierarchy that maybe you're not at yet, or act like you're more knowledgeable than you are. But it also lets everyone else who you're working with kind of know that you're all in the same playing field, and you guys can it's a partnership versus a teacher-student relationship. It's more collaborative, which I think kind of works for a lot of people as well.
Yeah, the psychological aspect of that I tell people is human in general are always much more willing to help you than they are to take criticism. So rather than saying, I think this drill would really help you, we should do this, say, I really want to work on this, would you do the drill with me?
Anyone else on drill?
Yeah, my main practice that I've been going to through most of my SCA career, at least the first hour of it tends to be drills, and the next hour will be just free for all. Pick whoever you want and go spar, and that was always nice. I definitely enjoyed, just going out there and fighting, but understanding how to fight, that's probably really good.
Full stance.
Donovan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think so. One of the points of the question was if you're not very experienced with drills, how do you encourage people to do drills with you? And I think a large part of it is making it to kind of riff off of Mirabai's point about how you frame it as, do you want to do this with me? But explicitly making it a community driven thing. I'm not doing this, I'm not asking for help with me, but like, hey, do you want to work on this thing together? Like, if you're explicitly trying to get someone to help you and you're also helping them, and like, you know, you're working as a collective unit. I think made a big difference for me when I was trying to start doing drills with people. Certainly it helps if someone has the same like sub interest as you in terms of like a particular manual or whatever, but like making it feel like everyone's in it together.
Right.
Yeah, there's a third practice that I've gone to that I might be sparring somebody and notice a thing, and we'll talk about doing and we'll do a little bit of a drill, and then the following week we'll pull everybody together so that everybody can learn what was going on, or even if they weren't there, everyone can learn that concept if they didn't know it, or if they did know it, get more practice. But it pulled everyone together and was definitely very community oriented.
So in Athlemark, when I started, and it's still depending on what practice you go to, there was a belief that drills are stuff that you do at home. So we did not do very many drills at all at practice. Now, don't get me wrong, we were not standing around and hanging out practice. That was definitely a no, right? It was get in, fight people until you can't fight anymore, and then go home. But what we did, I did get a lot of like one-on-one, particularly when I was getting up, of like, here's drills for you to do at home. Here's how to practice this at home. I also, when I was the marshal for my local practice, I made everyone do drills as a warm-up, right? But it was only like 10 to 15 minutes, because my groups that I was with were so interested in like, I don't want to do drills, I want to fight. But they understood that, hey, if we do drills as warm-up, that was an acceptable warm-up for them, rather than making them do laps or whatever. But it was a way for us to get involved with getting drills, and to start getting people to do drills is like, hey, let's do warm-ups. And so I would never like, you have to do it in this one way. It'd be like, we're going to do a lunge drill and lunge, and then everyone would lunge. And then one thing I like to do to people was make them pause in the middle of the drill and look down at their feet. Like, were their feet in the right position when they had just done the drill? And everyone would be like, no. All right. So on the let's see. Can you make an argument for the best historical master?
Oh my God.
One that works for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry.
I started out with Fabris, and I didn't like it at all.
I don't like Fabris at all.
When I look at a master, I also look at the personality type that goes with it. And Fabris is definitely type A, and I am not type A. I'm a sneaky old bastard like Gigante was. Except he was a young bastard, but that's beside the point. So I was just more comfortable with Gigante. So while everybody else in my area was moving, especially with Logos there, was moving towards Fabris, I was going my own direction with Gigante. And because it was just, for me, it was the right fit.
Anyone else?
I find that within, like, if you look within schools, are more similar. So like the masters are more similar than not within schools. So like you look at the Italian masters, like we're talking about like Gigante, Caprofaro, Fabris, Alfieri, like those four. And so like there's more similarities than differences. So it's very easy to kind of mix and match. Then compared if we tried going from the Italian master to like a distressor master, like there's still going to be a lot of overlap because swords are swords and bodies only move in so many directions. But like in terms of like how concepts are taught or approached are more similar within those like little sub schools. So I think finding what particular style or school really interests you. Maybe it isn't you because of persona. Maybe it is because of it works more with your body type, maybe. Or you just think like that, hey, that style looks really pretty and I really want to learn that particular style. That's a perfectly legit reason too. I think whatever you pick needs to excite you and keep you kind of like driven and motivated and really keep you engaged. And it's fine. I think it's fine to lily pad from like jump from lily pad of different masters at different time periods and stuff. Like do 133, do silver if you want. Go to Fabris after, just really kind of like jump around and kind of find what you like and go from there. I don't really like to play the whole like one master is the best kind of thing. I hate that game so much. It annoys me so fast, that stuff. But I think finding a school or a style that fits you is really good though.
All right, Mirabai, you had a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say, when I have new-ish people ask me about reading the Masters and who should I look at, I always tell them, figure out how your body moves first. Because trying to squish your body into the style of someone who doesn't move at all like you is, first of all, likely to cause injury. And second of all, you're not going to have much fun with it. We have a student in our area who, because of severe scoliosis, has a bunch of his vertebrae like fused together. And he's like, but I want to do Fabris. Okay, but that's probably not going to be the best pick for you. Like, figure out what's going to work for you. And like Remy said, you can jump around. You don't have to only follow one school. But finding out what works best for your body is what's going to help you improve as a fencer.
I mean, I tend to, I start people with Gigante primarily, and we'll work from there, depending on what they want to learn. I have a student who does Japanese things, so I compare katana things with longsword, because it's what I know. And I'll look at something similar to a plate that he has from one book to what I have, and so we could work off of one another. If somebody wants to do Destreza, I don't have a lot of experience teaching it. I have a basic concept of how to fight against it, but if you want to learn that, good. If that works for you, we'll go from that route, and I guess I'll learn a little bit more in how we're going to do this, but it literally is what works best for you.
All right, so next question. And by the way, Ilidor's response to that is Gigante is the best. So, it's pretty much the only one I've really studied. So obviously, I tried Fabris, but like your one person, I was like, my back was like, no, this is for a young person.
Yep, that's how I feel.
Very young, thin person, and I am none of those things. So no. All right, so next question. Should every grant level / peer level fencer, I mean mods, have a competent C&T game? Cut and thrust game.
No.
I don't even think I was C&T authorized when
I am not C&T authorized.
I'm not C&T authorized either.
I am now, but I definitely wasn't at the time.
I am, and I don't require it of my students. If I think a student would do really well or enjoy it, I might push them towards trying it, but I don't think you need to be cut and thrust to be able to get all the way up to getting a peerage.
Part of it's like this extra gear that you need, so that's extra. You need extra financial investment or have really good loaners and stuff. And like, I'm not gonna ding somebody from like getting it over above because they don't have the extra cash for like steel gauntlets or like a backup head protection and stuff. Like that would just be a dick.
Well, and there are some people like myself who have injuries where I don't want to do cut and thrust because a bad hit in cut and thrust could take me out of fencing, and I'm not willing to risk that.
I like seeing it, right? It's certainly, especially if people are doing a historical style that, you know, can emphasize or really allow for percussive cuts. But, you know, certainly the way things are structured now, we are not primarily a cut and thrust activity. But it's great to see, and certainly people can like shore up a lot of some, you know, deficiencies with, you know, they might not have a really great like weapons depth game, but like they can dive bomb in C&T, and that's great.
I love doing cut and thrust with rapier. I like adding the cuts to rapier because it adds another level to it. But I can't see requiring it. I mean, I was, like I say, I was part of the original side sword experiment way back when. But I would never require it. Gerard wasn't cut and thrust authorized until he was made a mod. And it was after that they decided to go with cut and thrust. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's just icing on the cake. It's something extra you can do.
The next question is, which the peanut gallery has said, ask the spear question. And the spear question is, are you looking forward to fighting with spears? Obviously, the answer for Remy is yes. Definitely looking forward to it. Anyone else looking forward to fighting with spears? We've got one, Llewellyn.
I was pretty against spears in the beginning when they were testing them out at Penzic, and it was the dagger on the end of the spear, and they were testing it. I was terrified when I saw that, and I've been pretty against it since then. But seeing where the experiment has come, especially with the rubber and the requirements on that spearhead, I'm looking forward to getting one and trying it out and seeing how it goes.
I had a lot of fun fighting spear when I fought heavy, and I'm starting to pick it up now. I've done some. I mean, we've got, like I say, we've got Master Tedesco is in our group, and he's the one who's in charge of the mid-realm part of the experiment. And we've been playing around with it for a while. I enjoy it. It's got potential.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Like I'm a big fan of anything that allows us to explore other martial art combat forms. Being that like we are the SCA, our thing is like medieval Renaissance, everything. Being able to explore how someone would fight with a spear or a partisan in Rotella, I'm super excited for. It means that I don't need to go over to HEMA to study it. I can still hang out with my SCA friends and be able to study some other weapon forms that kind of interest me and stuff. So I am super excited to kind of like just explore and see how the similarities are between using a spear and like a longsword or a rapier, because weapon, like again, it goes bodies move in some directions and weapons and weapons, and like seeing how techniques and concepts will cross over. I'm super excited for from like an academic perspective.
Happy that so many people are excited, but I also have grave concerns over injuries. Having seen the injuries caused just by heavy rapier in the last several years, I feel like a spear in the hands of someone who's inexperienced or really aggressive is going to be super dangerous. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I want to see the authorization for spears to be higher. I don't want that to be lowest common denominator. I want that to be like, I want to see a much higher competency level. Just being safe in your authorization, I don't think it would be enough for me. Like the East has just put out what our proposed rules are for it, so it's not official and stuff. So we'll kind of see what happens between now and when we can even all hang out with each other and stuff. But I definitely in the East want to see that to be not just common for that very reason.
Yeah, it should be treated like an advanced form. You have to show skill, not dangerous.
I am with Mirabai. I have rebuilt knees and they were expensive. So I am slightly worried about what would happen with me and with the spears. So I'm interested. I think the best way I can put it. I'm interested to see what happens with it, but I'm not willing to participate. I'm most importantly not willing to put my body out for the experimentation right now. However, other people who are interested in doing that, have fun. Donovan, do you have a comment?
No, nothing that hasn't already been echoed. Like, it's going to be neat. It's going to be fun. I've enjoyed it when I did it. But, like, yeah, we should expect more out of initial authorizations with the spear.
Okay. All right. So another question. What drills do you have for improving measure and tempo?
I mean, off the top of my head, you can, so, I mean, a drill is, you're just setting up a very structured situation. And, you know, you're going to start with like one input to create ideally like one output, right? So if you're working on measure and tempo, you set up the situation, you know, so you're working at striking someone as they move into a specific measure, you know, or when they give you a specific tempo. And then you work on a single slight variation of that, and then you put them together. So now you've got a single choice, and you can just like build and modify from there. But you really, like, a lot of it is kind of based on like what specifically you want to operate on.
So these can be a little, tempo can definitely be a harder concept to practice right now when you don't have a partner to give you a tempo for. There's something that you can do, like I know a lot of us will use like the swinging tennis ball for like point control, but you can use that to help you with like your tempos. Like you can have it swing at you and you can attack it as it's coming either away or towards you, like pick ahead of time and strike it. That's like a basic prima tempo. So like you're striking as it's going into your lunge distance. So you can kind of use that swinging tennis ball for that. You could use it also if it's swinging sideways. You could use it for like a Dewey tempi with a feint disengage. So kind of like finding different ways to household implements to kind of create the tempo situation is super helpful. Contra tempo may be a little bit more difficult since you're counterattacking your opponent, but like you might be able to do a thing where like you find your opponent's blade and maybe you have like an app or something or a light that just randomly goes off and that's your cue for when they attack. So you're really working on your reaction time. It's not 100% the same because it's not a blade moving or your opponent's body moving, but it can at least work on some reaction time. But tempo can be a little bit tougher. Measure, a lot of us do like the wall stabbing thing, especially with beginning, and making sure that we're doing that from different measures and really practicing close measure attacks and further measure attacks and making sure we're using the right measure for that is super useful. I did a video on that one for people that are interested in how that one particular works. I can post a link someplace if they want.
For measure, I've always lunge drills are great for figuring out your own measure. For figuring out your opponent's measure, which is the harder part, a drill I've done at our practices is I'll have two people there and both on guard, and I'll have one of them advance on the other, and then the first person will call hold when that person gets into measure. And then you check.
That's nice.
And then you bring in another person, a completely different person, and you do the same thing again. So you just have like 4 or 5 people there and you just rotate around and you have each person call when their opponent gets into measure. For tempo, one of the things we did back in the dark days was to take a large towel and sew a button on it and throw it in a clothes dryer. And when it made the random click, that was your tempo, and you would lunge. Because back then, most of us didn't have the computers, so random generators weren't around. So we created our own using the towel, the button, and the dryer.
Nice.
I love it.
In addition to what Remy was saying with the wall drill, incorporating footwork into it, especially not even footwork, because you're not always going to be stepping this far. You could be stepping this far, and just incorporating that, going back and forth. And when you feel like you've been back in measure, set the lunge, and hopefully you just touch the wall. And doing that over and over and over again to learn where that point is in your movement.
I like it. Anyone else? All right, we're getting close to 10 o'clock, which is Elidor's bedtime. So I'm going to ask one last question, which is how often do you do strength, flexibility, and cardio training? And I'm going to do a shout out for mine, which is I do this program called DDP Yoga, and I do it every single day. And every single day there's strength, flexibility, and cardio involved in that. So sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what workout I do, but I like doing it every single day. And I will tell you, it has helped my back out an awful lot. So next question, next answer. Anyone?
I do sun salutes, which is a particular yoga flow. It's like the most basic one that you can find YouTube videos on every morning. And I do some yoga before I go to bed every night. I tend to have lower back issues, and it helps a lot with that. But also going through like the warrior sequence in yoga, which again, you can look that up on YouTube, will really help with balance and flexibility for lunges. I also do cardio 5 to 6 days a week, and I do a mix of straight up cardio like running and strength training type cardio. I'll do HIIT workouts or mom workouts, which is every minute on the minute. That builds a lot of endurance. So I do it a lot.
Before we all got sent home and weren't working in offices, I had a gym at work, so I would do cardio and I would do weights while I was there. Since I've come home, I've had hip surgery, so I've done nothing for about 2 months as I'm recovering. But that's getting. I'm doing a lot better with my PT and well on my way to my recovery. Other than
obey your PT. That's all I'm saying. Obey.
I went today.
Okay.
I got more prescribed from my doctor because 6 weeks is not enough after hip surgery, especially when it's a 3-month recovery time. But other than that, I have a horse farm. I carry and do a whole bunch of stuff here. So I put on a lot of muscle in the last couple of years since I was here. By the way, Remy, Brand says hi.
Yay, my buddy.
Anyone
My
else?
wife's horse.
Anyone else discuss?
Oh no, she's asleep.
I do half an hour stationary bike 5 days a week. That's mainly for my heart more than anything. 3 days a week, I also, after the cardio, I do working with free dumbbells. And then the other 2 days a week, I do stretches and flexibility drills.
Remy Donovan, anything?
You know what Remy does.
Yeah, that's true. We all know what Remy does.
Sure. So,
But the audience might not know.
yeah, so one of my side things is doing personal training. So like I do a lot of working out, at least when the gyms are open and we're not all stuck at home and stuff. When times are better, I'm usually at the gym 3 or 5 days a week. I do more bodybuilding just because that's what I like. I like training for more that aesthetics kind of thing. I put in some powerlifting, but it's because that's how I enjoy working out. So like you can optimize for your goals for like, I want to work out to be a better fencer, but if you don't enjoy the workout you're doing, it doesn't super matter because you're not going to do it long term. So like what you do, you need to enjoy whatever you do as much as making sure that it's somewhat directed at your goals and stuff. Right now, I'm not doing much of anything. Like I have some resistance bands, but I just don't like doing them. It feels like a slog for me. So instead, when I take my dog out to the backyard, I'll take out my swords or my spear, and I'll just do drills. I'll just do solo mechanic drills for like an hour, which is a great way of getting the quads fired up and the upper back and shoulders and stuff. So right now, it's more tricking myself into doing workouts because I just can't go to the gym, and I don't like doing home workouts with resistance bands. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But I need to make sure I do a lot of mobility because I have tight hips. And if I don't do that, my fighting's bad. I can't move. It's all kind of
Do the yoga, Remy.
I should. I really should.
Do the yoga and like, this probably sounds ridiculous. I'm sure you've seen me post about it, but I do Zumba 4 or 5 days a week, which a lot of people will laugh at because it's just all dance fitness. But you move in ways in Zumba that you don't move normally. I mean, we tend to move very linearly in regular everyday life. And Zumba is moving at diagonals. It's moving side to side. It's quick weight changes. And I truly do believe that it makes your footwork better, which makes you a better fencer. So if you have a crew that's doing Zumba, it's really fun. And you can at least give it a try. If you hate it, meh. But.
Great. Anything else? No? All right. So this has been episode 4, Phantom Good. Good. And I just would like to thank all of you all for coming and participating. This has been great. I have loved talking with you, and I really look forward to stabbing you all soon. So thank you all so much for coming. Thanks you for all the questions, our audience. We really appreciate it. And we will obviously do this again. I plan on doing this until we run out of mods to talk, which will never happen, right? When you have, 6 mods and probably 14 opinions happen all at once. So thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and I will be posting this to YouTube probably later in the week. So have a good one. Thank you all. It was great.
Thanks
Bye.
For running this.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Of course.